Hey everyone, welcome to Lifeway's Trends and Tools and Church Training webinar. I'm Carol Pipes, Director of Communications at Lifeway, and with me are Ken Braddy, Lifeway's Director of Sunday School, and Scott McConnell, Lifeway's Executive Director of Lifeway Research. Gentlemen, thanks for being with me this morning.
Happy to be here.
Or this
Carol.
afternoon,
Good to be
sorry.
together.
This afternoon. It's been fun to look and see everybody introducing themselves on the chat today and seeing people from all over the country. We've got folks in California, New York, Boston, Massachusetts, North Carolina, South Carolina. I mean, just all across the country. We are so glad that you have joined us today. We are going to walk through Lifeway Research's recent study on the state of groups ministry. And specifically, we're going to look at what the study is telling us about the trends in church training, what churches are doing to train their groups ministry leaders. Before we get into the results of that and talk about the data and the insights that we can pull from that, I do want to make sure that you know that you can find all of the results of that study at lifewayresearch.com state of groups. And after today's webinar, you will be receiving in your inbox a link to a newly released State of Groups Insights report that we've pulled together. All of the results of that study. We've also worked with other leaders to pull actionable items together that you can take and use in your ministry at your churches. So be on the lookout for that today. Before we jump into the results of what we found about training around groups ministry, Scott, tell us a little bit about the study itself, who you surveyed, and how you did the survey.
Okay. This was a survey of adult groups ministry leaders.
Okay.
So the leader of adult groups ministry within churches, which is kind of fun because a lot of our surveys are of pastors or of churchgoers. And so here we're hitting the actual ministry leader for adult groups. We surveyed over 1,000 of them, 1,021. And there's no perfect sample, so we were able to pull from a lot of Lifeway's lists, but also some outside lists to try to get as diverse as possible across Protestant churches. Because we have access to a lot of Southern Baptist churches, there is an oversample of Southern Baptist churches that I may mention once or twice as we're talking.
Good. That's great. Like I said, we're going to really dive into the research around training. But you studied a lot more than that. Give us just some of the highlights of some of the things that you asked about in this particular study.
We asked churches what they call their groups. We asked their churches when they meet, how often they meet, if they take breaks throughout the year, whether they've recruited any new leaders this year, whether they've started new groups. Tried to really kind of dig into what groups look like within their church. And while most of the survey asked about their ongoing groups, we also asked about other Bible studies that they may have throughout the year. And so really to try to get the full breadth as well as a lot of depth into what their group's ministry looks like.
Yeah, so a really comprehensive study. And we've not really done a study like this before, right? This is first of its kind.
We've touched on a few of these topics a long time ago, but again, most of our surveys recently have been with pastors who may not be in tune with all of the details,
right? Or
with laity who are participants and can talk about where they're at in their discipleship, but again, can't get into the details of how the ministry operates.
Okay. So if you've not seen it yet and you would like to dig into all of those survey questions, you can find that at lifewayresearch.com/state of groups. Now, Lifeway Research has been studying discipleship and groups ministry for decades. Scott, tell us, why is that so important for us to look at and study and share those results?
Well, the research itself kind of gives us the clue why it matters. As we've surveyed, especially laity, people who attend Protestant churches, and really measure different aspects of their discipleship, we just see a lot of places where being in a group predicts higher levels of discipleship.
Yeah.
So we see that if you're in a group roughly once a month compared to people who are not in a group at all, you're more likely to be sharing your faith. You're more likely to be giving more to your church. Mm-hmm. You're more likely to be serving within your church. You're more likely to be serving outside the church.
Right.
You're more likely to be a peacemaker in the church. You're more likely to be involved in personal spiritual disciplines. I could go on.
Yeah. The healthier your members are, the healthier your church as a whole is going to be.
Yes.
So groups really do matter.
Yes.
That's great. So today we're specifically going to look at the questions that you asked about group leader training. And we know that churches have all kinds of methods that they use to train their people. So Scott, start off by telling us a little bit about what you saw as far as the different methods churches use to train their people.
Yeah, let me kind of break them into thirds.
Okay.
The first third, or just slightly more than a third, actually indicated they do not do any training of their leaders of adult groups. So 36% do not train. About exactly a third, 34%, do in-person training. And so the remaining, a little less than a third, are doing something else. And the something else is typically making some resources available. So kind of just in time, here's a book, or here's a video, or something else. And so this is one spot where we do see a little difference among Southern Baptist churches. Kind of those first two things flip. 31% are not doing any training, and 10% more, 44%, are doing in-person training. But otherwise, a pretty similar pattern to about a third not doing any training, a third doing in-person, and a third kind of making some resources available, but it's not in person.
Okay. So Ken, you're the expert on groups ministry. What does this data show you? What do you make of this? What concerns you? What surprises you? Give us some of your thoughts.
So it is, I think those are some good words you've chosen. Surprising is one. You didn't use the word alarming, but I'm going to use the word alarming for
you
one of
use
these.
Alarming. That's fine.
I was kind of surprised that only a third or so of the churches had in-person training. That is all I have done in 30 years of group ministry.
Huh.
And I just cannot imagine Scott throwing a book at them or saying, here, watch this, read this article, watch this video clip, and saying, good luck. I want to be with my leaders to encourage. And we saw that in another survey. That's one of the key reasons and one of the key things that they do at these things is to encourage group leaders. And I'd rather do that in person. So I was kind of surprised that only a third or so are doing it, in person. I was also surprised that only a third of the churches had any kind of training. I've assumed that was going to be a little bit higher, especially even at SBC Life, and that probably goes to show maybe why some of us are struggling in our group ministries. I think training is going to make a difference, and we'll talk about that here in a bit. I was also surprised that there was really not a mention, and Scott, maybe there was. You'll know because you're the data guy, but Zoom type training or online training was not. It didn't make the cut here, or unless it maybe came in that that. Other training category was about 21% or so.
I looked through that, and literally only a couple people mentioned it. And in some cases, they were really talking about it's more of a time to chat, which creates the camaraderie, which is a good part of one of the things that training fosters. But really, it seems underutilized. That's a good point.
Yeah, so I'm gonna take a foray into that in about 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm asking all of the group leaders. We've got about 92 group leaders at my church. We're going to not gather together, but instead we're going to kick off our trainings for the year at 3:00 on February the 16th from 3 to 5 on Zoom.
Okay.
And I've got a guest coming in from Lifeway, Dwayne McCrary, who has recently written a book. I'm just going to have him go over that content. It's about being outward focused and more evangelistic. He'll do that for an hour, and then I'll take the back hour for other things with our group leaders. But they don't have to get out of their home. They can do it on the couch, do it from their comfortable chair, and we'll see how that goes. If it goes well, I think it will, because I think they ought to appreciate not having to come back up to the church or stay a few hours after church. I'm hoping if this catches, that might become part of our rhythm for providing training. It wouldn't be all that we would do. I'd want to do in person, but it would become more of a staple, regularly each year we do one or two of those kind of trainings.
Have you heard from groups ministry leaders about why maybe they're not doing training? Do you have some I don't think we asked that question. What's keeping people from doing training?
Yes.
Anecdotally, what can you tell us?
I can say this with some high level of confidence.
Okay.
When we have our group essentials conferences, like we did just days ago in Florida, we do a whole session, an hour and a half, on the importance of training. We go over some of this data, and then we actually spend the rest of the time helping the leaders, the pastors, develop their plan. That's the number one killer. They know they need to do it,
right?
But they're like, I don't know what to do. What topic do we start with? How long do we make this? What does the training look like? A lot of them have not been in a group leadership training, and so it's paralyzing. When you've not done it, you don't know what it looks like or should look like. Maybe you're afraid to do it and fail. The default can just be, well, we'll just kind of hit pause and not do it. Yeah. So that's one thing we like to do, is to give them some thoughts and ideas. And we'll do this today here on the webinar. It's really, once you get that behind you, the rest of it kind of falls in place.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about those who are doing training. Scott, one of the questions you asked was the frequency with which churches are doing their training. What did you discover?
There are churches kind of across the board. And we only ask this of churches who do in-person training. So if you do in-person training, how often is it happening? And the largest number of churches say they do it once a year. The second largest do it quarterly, and the next largest group do it twice a year. All told, about 68% are doing it 1 through 4 times in a year.
Okay. And
again, a slight difference when we looked at Southern Baptist Church is a little higher. 79% are in that 1 to 4 times a year. But over 2/3 are kind of doing it either once a year, twice, or 4 times a year.
Okay. So Ken, back to our expert. How does this align with the practices that you're seeing in churches that you're meeting with? And what are best practices too?
So this is completely in line with what I see and hear from group leaders of groups, ministry leaders all over the country and all kinds of sizes of church that are attempting group training.
Okay.
So, zero surprise here, honestly. Nothing at all kind of popped up here and caught me off guard on this one. What I hear most frequently, Scott and Carol, is that the churches that are doing training are landing on 3 or 4 times a year. Typically, that's whenever I'm asking, hey, what do you do? Quarterly seems to come up most.
Okay.
And then there are some that will tell me we do it 3 times a year. And I asked that first one and asked them to explain that. What's their rhythm?
Right.
They said we do 1 in the fall, 1 in the spring, and something right in the middle, like at the start at the end of summer, is people are coming back and the new year starts, so to speak. And
I can see
early
that.
August, and they kind of kick off a new year of group ministry there. I don't mind that rhythm. I think 3 is not a bad one.
Okay.
But my church, I've decided that we're going to do quarterly. And so that's what we're going to do. And I did that for a couple of reasons. One, our friends at the Georgia Baptist Mission Board years ago did a survey that I still think is probably valid. And they surveyed at that time 2,544 churches, and they wanted to know, they looked at a 4-year window of time. They said, where did you start with attendance at the beginning of this 4 years? And at the end of the 4 years, had you grown or shrunk? What was the number?
Okay.
And they went back and then they said, during that same 4 years, how often did you train your group leaders? And they were trying to get at practices, best
Right.
practices back in that day. What they found out was that if a church had no training, the churches in that category actually shrunk minus 2.1%.
Wow.
If they had weekly training, which I don't know hardly anybody that does that anymore. I did that for 18 years in Texas. I could not do that today.
That's a lot.
That ship
It seems
sailed.
like a lot.
Something
Like a
has
lot.
changed. Yeah. So, but back in the day when they surveyed churches that were doing training weekly, were still growing, but they were growing at a 6% rate over those 4 years.
Okay.
That's not bad.
Right.
But then what caught my attention was the churches doing quarterly or monthly, because you can pick either one of those frequencies, and they were both somewhere between 13.2 and 13.8%, average it out, probably 13.5% growth in those 4 years.
Okay.
And people have asked, well, it seems like, if you do it weekly, that ought to give you a bigger kick, bigger results for, and I said, no, because think about what you're doing. When you're doing something like that weekly, you're typically focusing on getting your teachers ready for the next Sunday's lesson.
Right.
If you're doing it quarterly or monthly, you're focusing on higher altitude topics like how to have a more evangelistic class, how to be a more welcoming group, how to plan fellowships, and the things that add to the health of a group, which causes growth in groups. The conclusion of Steve Parr, who was leader of the Georgia Baptist Mission Board's education wing that did the surveys and wrote books off of it, their conclusion was training matters.
Yeah.
It absolutely matters. And I've seen that in the churches that I've served.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So training definitely has an impact on church growth. And it sounds like that sweet spot is quarterly.
Quarterly is where I would say the sweet spot is.
Okay.
Yeah. So if anybody said, we don't really do training right now, what should we do? Here's what I would recommend, Carol. I would say, because I did this 2 churches ago. I've been on church staffs since I came to Nashville to work at Lifeway. I like keeping my hands busy, and I like helping churches. And I went to a church, this is probably half a dozen years ago, right here in the area, that for 16 years of its existence, it was 16 years old, they had never had a regular rhythm of training. So I had a choice to make, Scott. I was like, what do we do here? Do we do weekly? No. Do we do monthly? Maybe. But it felt like for a group that had never had training, quarterly would be about the max I would want to push them.
Okay.
So that's what we did. And that little church down in Shelbyville, Tennessee, became the fastest growing Sunday school in the state of Tennessee those years that I was there. We think part of it was because of the training, because we had great response. They were hungry for it. They were glad to have it. There were other reasons. They had a new pastor.
Yeah.
We started some groups, started in a second Sunday school hour, but training became kind of the centerpiece of our our group ministry at that church. So I've seen it. I've done it. I think it makes a big difference.
That's awesome. I just want to stop real quick and just say that we are going to try to get to some of your questions in the chat. So if you've got questions that pop up, either you can go ahead and put them in the chat or save them until we get to the end. That way we can see them really easily. But just wanted to make sure you knew that we will try to get to some of your questions, as many as we can. You mentioned when you were talking about frequency, that if you're doing things quarterly, you can kind of fit in topics like evangelism, caring for group members, and different things like that. We did have a question on this survey about the topics that came up in training. And it seems that there is some consistency in some of the topics that churches are using in their group leader training. Scott, tell us about those topics and what the study showed us.
We asked them what topics they'd hit in the last 2 years.
Okay.
So even those that had a lower frequency, that would give them a chance to have several training sessions. The most popular, 7 out of 10, indicated that encouragement for the leaders is a topic they definitely hit. The next highest, 6 out of 10, indicated spiritual development for their leaders. Then we get into some of the how-tos, how to use curriculum, how to teach, how to make deeper discipleship relationships within your group, and then just some guidance on group dynamics and leadership styles. So most of those, it's half or above are hitting those topics over a 2-year period. Encouragement is probably the broadest one on that list and the highest. But if you think about that, there's a couple angles to that. One is encouragement, just as in the opposite of discouragement.
Mm-hmm.
And so, some of that just comes with casting the vision of what is the value of this ministry?
Right.
Why are you in your role as a different type of leader? Why is that important?
Yeah.
And then how do you keep leading through adversity? All of those can be very encouraging things, because adversity comes in a lot of forms. It can be people not wanting to engage or not showing up,
right?
Or it can be people going through hardships in your group. And so when those things are happening, just having other people come alongside you and encourage you is super helpful. But it also can be encouragement on some of the specifics of ministry. Don't forget, we need to be contacting people who haven't attended, or
right.
Don't forget. And it's not that we really would have forgotten. We just really may not have followed through on it.
Yeah.
And so if you're encouraging me as we get together, I'm more likely to do the things even that I already know how to do.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. Ken, what do you see in these training topics? Are you surprised? Is there anything missing from this list that churches need to be training on?
I was kind of surprised that encouragement was as high as it is, because I may need to rethink mine now, because mine tend to be more of the how-tos, very practical, like send you out of this meeting with some new skills and kind of thing. So I was a little surprised encouragement ranked as high, but maybe because it was a broad category, Scott, maybe that was part of the reason. But I was surprised that at least on this list, we see on the chart, maybe it's under the other category, but evangelism, like how to share my faith, didn't make this particular cut. And I was kind of surprised by that. But I was also surprised that a topic of how to develop my replacement, an apprentice, because that is so desperately needed in our churches. We cannot start new groups with substitute teachers. It really takes the apprentice that's going to be that higher commitment level, want to branch out, take some people, start the group, do pioneer kind of missionary work, reach new people. That's really not something that looks like we're training and talking about. Mm-hmm. And it kind of shows we're not really starting as much new groups as we ought to. That's in another survey. Yeah. So maybe I shouldn't be too surprised by that. But I was pleased about this one, Scott, that says, how to move to a deeper discipleship relationship. That gives me a lot of hope, because my concern for, I'm just going to call it Sunday school ministry, whatever your church calls it, substitute the name. But typically adjacent to the worship service Sunday morning, that kind of thing. A lot of times those ministries become so Sunday morning focused. The group leaders believe that it's really about 9 to noon on Sunday morning. Mm. And I'm hoping that what the survey respondents are telling us is that they're instructing their group leaders to consider being in the world of their group members more frequently and do discipleship, hopefully in smaller groups, micro groups, 2 or 3 to 5 people type groups. I think that would be very healthy for an on-campus Sunday morning ministry to have leaders that understood that's part of it, but there's also another level of relationship building and discipling and accountability that can take place outside the group time. Yeah. And I'm very excited about that part of the survey.
So looking at these topics, you noted that you were really glad to see deeper discipleship, or how to move to a deeper discipleship on there. What, besides evangelism, because it's not on this list, what other topics would you encourage group leaders to try to tackle in addition to these that are on here?
So I'd say let's have a little fun with our webinar audience.
Okay.
So we'll work without a net here for a moment, and this may or may not fly. We'll find out. But what I'd like to do is something that we do at our Group Essentials Conference, and that is to do the hardest work of identifying topics that your people would actually come to. Because that's usually the paralyzing thing about trying to plan training. And so in the chat, what I would love for you to do, wherever you are, because we got folks literally around the country. Yeah. Let's just say that everybody on this webinar is a group leader. Okay, we're going to put on our group leader hat. We're leader of a group. Your church is sponsoring training, and they're promoting a particular topic. What would get you out of bed? What would make you want to stay late on a Sunday, have lunch, and stay till 2:00 and do the training, or come back late on Sunday afternoon, 4 to 5 or 6:00, and do some training? So put in the chat something that you feel like a group leader would need to know. It would really help you in your ministry. Let's see, and be specific as you can. Let's see what you come up with, and I'll tell you why we're doing this. So we'll let you type away for a moment.
So Mimi says discipleship, parenting skills, especially adolescents, how to lead good discussion.
That one comes up all the time. How to lead great discussion in groups, because there's an art and a science to that.
Yeah.
Cindy says, finding my replacement. Yeah, we need to do more of that.
That's good.
Yeah. Allie says spiritual gifts. Yeah, because especially in adult groups, you've got a captive audience there that are gifted, and it can certainly help.
How to make the study fun and interesting.
There you go. Yeah. Because there's a difference between being prepared and engaging.
Yes.
Those are two different things. Because I've been in prepared groups that were just boring.
Yeah.
But sometimes you get a teacher that's very prepared and engaging, and that's when you get that wonderful secret sauce thing, and everybody wants to be in that group.
So as a group leader of high school girls, I would come to a discussion about how to keep high school girls engaged in spiritual discussion and not talking about all the things going on in their lives and at school. So I'm coming off of Wednesday night, and for the first time in several weeks, we had a great discussion about the scripture that we were looking at. And it was so exciting for me to leave and think, we did it. We stayed on topic. It was so great.
How about that? Yeah, we've seen some other great ones pop up here. Now, here's what I would say to you. If you're able to take a screenshot of some of those, what we encourage our pastors to do that come to our Group Essentials conference is to develop a list of 12 topics that their people would come to, or that the group leader needs to know. And we let them work at a table. They put those together. We go around the room. We share kind of like what you're seeing here in the chat. Mm-hmm. And then we tell the pastors, congratulations, here's what you just did. If you were to implement quarterly training, you now have the next 3 years worth of quarterly topics.
Oh, yeah.
And all of a sudden the dam breaks, and then they're like, wow, the hardest thing, the paralyzing thing, I didn't know what to talk to my group leaders about. I've got a list of 12. That's 3 years. That's at least 3 years worth. Yeah. And so I would encourage you guys that are on the webinar today, just jot down some of those or take screenshots, because if you don't have training, or if you want to increase, this is where we start with our pastors, is just helping them think through the topics.
You guys are putting in some great topics into the chat. And we do have some articles at lifewayresearch.com that fit some of those topics that you've mentioned. But yeah, definitely take Ken's advice. Copy some of these ideas down and then use them in your church training that you do at your church. Speaking of training, we definitely see that there is a need for more training. Scott, talk about the stat that you pulled that more than 3 in 4 church leaders acknowledge they need to do more in the area of training.
So we asked the group's ministry leaders if they agree or disagree with the statement, our church needs to make more training available. And this is specifically your adult ongoing group leaders. And 3/4 agreed, and 32% strongly agreed. So this is a felt need. They notice it. The Southern Baptist group of churches was 10% higher. So this is very much something that they know needs to be happening, and in the cases where it's not, and needs to be more often, or more of it.
Yes,
in the others.
More often, more of it. Very good. So Ken, what would you say to a pastor who is in this 76% who say they need to do more with regard to training? What would you tell them?
So I would tell them, do it. Put this got to go on the get things done list.
Right.
Right. So I would say, do what we've just done. Develop a list of at least maybe 4, your first 4, which is your first year's worth of quarterly topics. Yeah. And then you want to go to some places and find some content that you can use to share with your group leaders. Yeah. So I want to invite everybody on the webinar, come over to my groups blog. I do this kind of outside of Lifeway, but I'm connected to Lifeway with a lot of the links on it. There's no charge. I do this just for fun, just to help support groups and group leaders. But there's probably 3,000 articles I've written since 2010 on all kinds of topics related to group ministry, usually in 3 and 4 point or 5 point outlines. And it's about, 800 words, fairly quick reads. And there's a search bar. So you can type in conversation or discussion. And I've written on, how to have a more discussion-centered group, how to ask great questions. Those are going to pop up. Yeah. So please print those out, save them, use them. You don't need to give attribution to me for that. Just use them in your training, and that can be at least a starting point. Yeah. Lifewayresearch.com is a great place to come for those articles. But once you decide on topics, now you got to have content. Yeah. So I'd say that would be the right order. Yeah. But I would also say to that pastor that says, we're really not doing much, but I know we need to. Then I'd say this: if your frequency is never, start with something annual. Yeah. If you're doing annual, move to twice a year. If you're doing twice a year, maybe consider 3 times, or maybe moving to quarterly, but crawl and then walk and then run, just kind of, and in 3 or 4 years, you're where you want to be. Yeah. And it'll happen fast enough.
And get it on the church calendar.
Yes. And here's the other thing I would say about that, because there were times on church staffs when I was full-time on church staff, and we put training and we'd look up and somebody else or else's had put other events on top of our training, a choir rehearsal, a trip somewhere, and
that
also
would never happen.
yeah, you would hope. But so we had to declare, because our group ministry, think about this, everybody, your worship service probably is the most attended thing that you do in a week. Mm-hmm. But I'm telling you, right behind it is the group ministry, and you can add up everything else you do in the course of a week. Mm-hmm. Nothing compares to the group ministry. Yeah. So if that's true, and it's like the number 2 thing we do, and if it's the thing that we do along with the preaching of our pastors to disciple our people, it needs priority calendar time. So we just got to the point, we said, look, if there's something Sunday school training wise that we put on the calendar, it is untouchable. Nobody else can be up against it, because we want to focus on our group ministry. Yeah. It was just too important to us.
Yeah. Now, some group leaders may say, or groups ministry leaders may say, oh, hey, we don't have a budget to do training. Mm-hmm. Give some examples of how they can do training on a shoestring budget.
Yeah, I've had to do this because I inherited a church that had $0 for training. Mm-hmm. And so we had to get creative real quick. Here's what I would say. Do not schedule training where you have to provide a meal. Because even if you do inexpensive, box lunches, you just pick your favorite restaurant that does sub sandwiches. Those are going to be $15 a box, right? You have a number of teachers, it could get expensive pretty quick. So here's what I do. If you're going to do something on a Saturday morning, start at 9, be done by 11. Right. No breakfast, no lunch, right? Just drinks and snacks. That's going to save you some dollars. That's true. Right. That's and don't bring in outside people to speak, because they deserve some compensation for time and travel and that kind of thing. Find the people that are inside your church who have expertise. I had a guy at my second church who was like customer service manager for a large Cadillac dealership in the Dallas area. And I'm like, hey, can you prepare like 30 minutes on, how to give great customer service, but in a church group context? He goes, oh yeah. He was very happy that I asked him to do it.
Oh, that's great.
So we just took advantage of people that had expertise, and they were happy, thrilled to do it. Yeah. Because it was helping our church. But because you guys are on the webinar today, I'm going to mention something that we talk about at the Group Essentials Conference that is I think phenomenal. So everybody at home needs to jot this down. So hopefully you got a pen, but I want you to jot down lifeway.com/training resources. Okay. Okay. And when you get there, what you're going to find are books similar to, this one right here, this Breathing Life into Sunday School. Yeah. There's some other current ones that we're selling there, right? And some of these are anywhere from $5 to $10, $12. They're not expensive, really. Mm-hmm. But if you would scroll to the bottom of lifeway.com/training resources, you get down to the bottom and it will say, do you need more resources? Click here for more by David Francis. David was the former me, our former Sunday school director. Yeah. He wrote a booklet kind of like this every year, 3 points, about 75 pages, all on group ministry, hyper-focused. They're full, chock full of content. Every one of his books, plus all the ones that we've written since his retirement, We've probably got 20 to 21 of these books. They are right there at that page that you click through to. The book is there in PDF. You can download it. The training plan is there. You can download the training plan to walk your teachers through the content. The PowerPoints are there, and there's also a Hispanic or Spanish version.
Oh, that's excellent.
And if I were you guys, I would mark out a couple of hours and I would download to my heart's content, put it all on your laptop, your computer.
That's great.
And you would literally, if you did one a year, you've got content for 20 years.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I knew that.
And that's all free.
existed.
It's just
That's
sitting there.
great.
It's sitting there free. It's just we don't do a lot of marketing and promotion, but we love to help people find it. And that's how you can do some stuff for free.
That's great.
Yeah.
So give us and our guests some best practices for leading a successful training event.
Yeah. So one of the first things I would say is you got to start on time.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got to end on time.
Okay.
That's kiss of death to wait on people that are late.
Yeah.
So whatever time you say you're going to start, you got to start. Number two, make sure that somebody has thought about things like room temp, snacks, drinks, lighting. They've checked the AV. You don't want any of that messing yourself up, right? You've got to, because when they go do training at their companies, it's right.
Yeah.
So they expect that same thing from us, and that's right for them to do so, at church. So I'd say start with those at least and promote it. Make sure that they understand what it is, what you're going to do. And I'd say this too. This is another kiss of death for training at the church. Do not tell people in your training event things that you can stick in an email.
Oh,
because that is
okay.
annoying and an annoying waste of time.
Right.
Do things with them that they can't get in an email.
Yeah.
And they will continue to come back to your training.
Do you have some tips for making the training engaging?
Yeah, I would say don't do all the talking.
Okay.
That'll be the temptation for the person leading it, is do all the talking because you've studied a little bit and you got things you want to communicate. But I love to put people in groups of 2, 3, or 4 and have them answer questions, work on a project, and then report back to the group. I like to give them regular breaks, about every 30 to 45 minutes. Let's take a 5-minute stretch break, that kind of thing. Or just stand up. Don't go to the restroom, just stand up, stretch, and let's get going again. Things that you can do like that to break it up are always very positive.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, you've already shared one of the places where folks can get training help from Lifeway, but Lifeway has a lot of opportunities for ongoing training for pastors and group leaders, from podcasts to webinars to blogs, websites. Ken, can you talk about some of these things? There's also some short events and things for group leaders. Tell us a little bit about some of those. And I think we've got a slide that that's going to be on the screen.
So we've got, like, if you're using Lifeway ongoing curriculum, Explore the Bible, Gospel Project, Bible Studies for Life, every week we have online a podcast to help your group leaders walk through the lesson coming up. And we'll talk about the theme of the lesson, the major points, any theological potholes they need to watch out for that could be tricky, and we'll help prepare them for their lessons. Those are available at our curriculum sites. So go explorethebible.com, BibleStudiesForLife.com, GospelProject.com. Those are all sitting there every single week. All age groups do an essentials conference, a group essentials. So we have one for adults, Black church. We've got one for students and one for kids. And those you can find by coming to the lifeway.com site and searching, or you can just go on Google and search. They'll come up. Yeah.
What happens at a group's essentials conference?
Oh, my goodness. They get 12 hours of training. At least at mine, I do a 2-day one. We give them Bibles and books on discipleship and 12 hours of boutique training. So we don't take more than about 30 people.
Right.
We keep them small on purpose so we can get to know them.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That sounds really good.
Just did one in Florida.
All right.
There's so many things. I just say take a screenshot of that with your phone, and just come to the Lifeway site and do some perusing. We got week-long events like Black Church Leadership Week. We do other events, the You Lead women's events, usually prior to a bigger women's event. So a lot of things we can do to help you.
And Marissa Sullivan, who's on our team, she's put a link to all of those training resources from Lifeway. Nice. So you can copy and paste that link and you can see all the different ways that Lifeway is trying to help group leaders improve their ministries and come alongside them. Okay, we have come to the time for Q&A. So we're going to go to the chat and pull some questions from you guys. So let's see. Our friend Donnie is over here. He's running through the questions for us, and he's going to pull up some of those. Okay. So one of the questions was from Nathan Lawson. How do you motivate leaders, particularly seasoned leaders, to participate when they see little need for development or training?
Yeah, so that's a tough one. That's an evergreen thing that happens in our churches. And I'd say for some of those folks that are seasoned, if they're really truly seasoned, pull them into the leadership of the training.
Okay.
Let them teach other people how to do what they're wanting to see them trained in.
Okay.
So yeah, pull them in.
Ken, what would you say to a church that only has a handful of leaders? So it's a smaller church. Maybe there's a few adult, just a couple student or kids. Would you say anything different to them as they're getting started with?
Yeah, I'd say
groups?
do all teachers together. Don't try to think about breaking them up. There won't be enough. I'd say think about partnering with a neighboring church or two to do training together. I think that's very healthy.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We've got a question from Jose. How do you overcome when leadership seems to push back on training and or new suggestions?
Yeah, you plow ahead. You do it anyway. You go with those that'll go with you, and don't let the naysayers keep you from doing it. Because the naysayers could just be, they could be discouraging.
Yeah.
And then you could give up, and it's too important to give up on.
Yeah. That's
So
good.
you just do it.
All right.
I think one of the big takeaways is when you're in training together, you're realizing you're in it together. You're going after the same goals together.
Yeah.
And so sometimes the games or things we might play, we don't do it at every training in our church, but sometimes we'll play games, but they're games that we have to work together to accomplish something and to beat the other group of leaders. And so that working together kind of mimics what you're hoping is happening every week, that we each have a role in this discipleship process.
Yeah.
But in groups ministry, it is something we've got to come together to do.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So there is a question in the chat about, what if, how do you convince your pastor if your pastor is not really on board with training?
Mm-hmm.
And I think showing him some of the research that shows why group ministry is so important to the health of the church is important, but talk a little bit about what you can do to help bring your pastor along.
Involve him in the training, ask him to speak, but then also share with him, just like you said, the statistical reality that groups are growing groups, healthy groups, trained leaders is good for the church.
Mm-hmm.
And every pastor wants his church to grow.
Yeah.
And wants group ministry to grow. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
You talked earlier about the importance of training up new leaders. Daniel Carter asked, how do you go about identifying and training new leaders?
So you look for people, not necessarily that are the best teachers in the church,
mm-hmm.
but you look for people that have a shepherding heart.
Yeah.
Because those people will love people, and you can train them how to be the technical things to be a better teacher.
Mm.
And so what I always want to do is look for that B or B plus or B minus teacher, because I can make them into a better technical teacher.
Yeah.
But they have a love for people that sometimes others don't have, that just want to present.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I would do.
That's good. I see one from Mike. In your opinion, when is it good to include just the main group leaders in training versus including all levels of leadership in the groups?
Main group leaders versus care leaders. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think,
so if you've got probably a larger group and you've assigned different people in your group, different things.
Yeah. I would bring in the substrata of leaders at least once a year, usually to that August training.
Yeah.
As you're kicking off a new season of ministry,
mm-hmm.
that's when I would do that.
Okay.
Yeah. Because there'll be things you don't want to talk to them about throughout the year. Your main group leaders can handle that.
I like CJ's question.
Mm-hmm.
What do you suggest for leaders that may have anxiety about their role?
I would remind them that it's not as much about what they do, but what God does through them. And
good.
that God in Scripture always seems to take the weak and people that are unprepared, or they feel unprepared. Gideon was one of those. They've got excuses. Moses had excuses,
Right.
speech impediment.
Yeah.
But God does great things through people that don't
Yeah.
feel like they've got it.
That's true.
And it's really about him, not so much about us.
Right. That's really great.
Yeah.
That's really great. Let's see. How do you create a Bible study curriculum based on the preaching topics of the pastors so others will participate?
Oh boy. That's probably one I shouldn't answer, but I'm going to answer it anyway.
Go. It's okay.
It's not my favorite way to do Bible study.
Okay.
Because it can lead to an imbalance of topics and maybe not a covering of the entire counsel of Scripture. So it's my least favorite way to do Bible study. Sorry for all you guys that do sermon based, but I think we're better off with a scope and a sequence that accounts for the developmental needs of preschoolers, kids, students, and adults, with a healthy sampling of books throughout the Bible and topics throughout the Bible.
Right.
And so if you wanted to do sermon based like that, I would say let us help you with that, because we do have a division here. Tyler Quillett leads it, and they can do customized studies.
Yep.
And they can help you balance over time.
That's right.
And work with your pastor over time. If you want to do sermon based, they can help you become better sermon based.
Yeah. We talk a lot about scope and sequence at Lifeway.
Yeah.
And sometimes I feel like for maybe our friends out in churches may not completely understand what we mean by that. So, and you gave a brief description, but go a little bit deeper into what we mean by why it's important to have a scope and sequence to what you're teaching people.
Sorry, I just throw those words out because we use them here a lot.
I know. It's okay.
A scope it's the total number, all the possible topics you could study. Mm-hmm. And the sequence is simply the order in which you are going to choose to study those things. And that's the hardest work that we do here at Lifeway, bar none, is to decide over, let's say, a period of, like Gospel Project, 3 years, or Explore the Bible, 9 years, scope and sequence for the adults. What do we study and in what order? And when folks, get a little glimpse under the hood as to how we do it, they go, oh, okay, that makes sense. But I had a lady the other day that asked me, I was doing training at a church, and she said, in Explore the Bible, why don't we just go through Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John? And why do we do Matthew, and then we do several other books, and then we come back and we finally do another gospel? And I said, well, think about it this way. If we did Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and then somebody new came into your group, they don't hear a gospel for like 8 years.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And we want them to have a healthy balance of gospels, epistles, books of prophecy, poetry, wisdom, those kinds of things over the course of time. And so that's where we have to do that hard work of balance.
That's really good.
Because if you don't, usually what happens if somebody's doing their own, they camp out on a particular book of the Bible they love.
Yeah.
Daniel, Revelation, they'll spend years in those things. Or they'll pick up a pet theological topic, and then we'll go camp out in Romans for, another 2 years or something. And where I love Romans and Revelation and Daniel, the people in my group, I think it's like going to the buffet and just eating one thing. And we want to give them a healthier diet, spiritual diet. Right.
Yeah. That's good. Got a question about spiritual gifts surveys.
Okay.
What are your feelings about using spiritual gifts surveys to discover people's giftedness among members?
Yeah, I don't object to spiritual gift surveys. Some of my favorite ones, David Francis actually has one at lifeway.com that is atypical. It is not. It does not list out and test on the spiritual gifts that you see listed in Scripture, like so many of the spiritual gift tests do. Instead, his goes a little different direction and goes to like, what are your likes? What are your interests? How do you feel like God has wired you? What do you enjoy doing? And then he finally will get there, because I think we've all taken spiritual gift tests where I see like every 8th question is about the gift of teaching. And so if I want to come out high, I know how to I know how to cheat the test, And David came at it from the other end and just said, how do you feel like maybe God has wired you? And what gives you joy, and what do you think makes him smile as he watches you do it, that kind of a thing. And I think his is a very unique approach. But to answer that question at a higher altitude, I don't have any objection at all. I think they can be very helpful, to be honest.
Okay. Nicole had a question.
Mhm.
What do you do when you see a trend of participants leaving a particular leader's group and requesting another leader?
Mm.
That gets tricky.
It does. Yeah, it could be that person. I mean, you've got a few options. The nuclear option is you dismiss the teacher and you put a new one in there and you go, well, that must be the problem.
Yeah.
I'd start by asking a lot of questions.
Hmm.
Why are you asking? What's causing this? With other members of the group, if they've been talking, what's generating this? And it could be a number of things, Carol. I mean, it could be just that person needs more training in how to teach.
Right.
And they are prepared, but they are not engaging. And so this, boredom becomes the kiss of death and people want out of the group. That could be it. They could be, some teachers, unfortunately, they grind a political axe and end up running people out of the group. It could be something like that.
Yeah.
It could be a coarse joke or something slightly inappropriate that made everybody uncomfortable. I mean, it could be a variety of things. So you got to
also be other members of the group and not necessarily
That's true.
the leader.
That's true. So you don't automatically assume it's the leader. You would probably think there might be something there that you might go fix, but you don't know until you start doing some investigating. I would certainly say, do your best to uncover what the issue behind the issue, and then work with that person, because I bet they've been in there teaching for a while, serving, giving, investing, and you don't want to go exercise the nuclear option on them, unless you just have to.
Right.
Yeah. So retrain.
That's good. Jeffrey, I want to hit Jeffrey's question here. He says his church doesn't have a groups culture, and there hasn't really been a history of doing groups at that church. How would you help a church shift to having a groups culture? Because that would be a pretty big shift for a church. It would be a shift.
You probably could start with a special, I'm going to say a special topical study, a felt need study.
Okay.
So, hey, for the first 6 weeks of October and mid-November up to Thanksgiving, we're going to church-wide, we're going to do a study on finances or parenting or marriage or a book of the Bible or whatever it is. And you've got leaders that you have pre-enlisted. You've given them, the curriculum to start looking through, and now it's sign up time. So it's either we do it in neighborhoods, we do it at the church if there's room, but you can start with something like that, and then people would probably come out of that. Not everybody, but I bet that the majority of the people would say, you know what, that was pretty great.
Yeah.
Carol, what's next?
Yeah.
And you go, oh, y'all want something next? Oh, well, lo and behold, if we haven't been thinking, look, we've got these two other studies. What about one of these? And then maybe that would help it, take off and run.
Yeah.
But sometimes people have to experience good group.
Yeah, that's true.
To know what they're missing, right? Because if they don't have a culture of it, they might feel like, well, just coming to, big church is plenty.
Yeah.
And I think we all know that that's not true. Even the research even tells us, Dr. Rayner's research told us that if people don't get involved in our groups, in 5 years, if you had 100 people today, but they didn't get involved in a group, they just came to church, you can only find 16 out of that 105 years.
Wow.
Group ministry is such an important thing. So whatever we can do, even if it's a short-term study, 4, 6, 8 weeks, to kind of get things kicked off.
So start small.
And let that.
And build on it.
Just, stoke that fire.
Yeah.
We were speaking to a leader recently who their church does that strategy every year.
Okay.
And so it's church-wide, big emphasis. We're all going to do a short-term study together. But a couple weeks in, as a ministry leader for the church, he starts talking to those group leaders. They've only committed to those 6 weeks.
Right.
And he starts talking to them about, what would you think about making this an ongoing group?
Just kind of keep on going, right?
And so if they've had a good experience, they start to say, oh, maybe I could do this every week. Or if I had a co-teacher, I could.
Yes.
So maybe we can pair up a couple of you and you could continue this on. And as somebody mentioned earlier, sometimes it's that anxiety, not thinking you can do it.
Yes.
That's really standing in the way of a lot of leaders being a group leader. And
100% agree. And
so I love that idea.
I think also, as this goes back to the training topic that we're talking about today, right? But I hope that group leaders would not come into a group ministry with a false understanding of their role. We do not need second sermons in our groups. We've already had a sermon, or we're going to get a sermon. We do not need somebody to stand there for 45 minutes and give us another one. In group ministry. If we've got, let's say, I'm going to say round numbers, 40 minutes for a Bible study. I, the teacher, Scott, I don't need to have stuff prepared to say more than about 15, 20 minutes, because the rest of it should be what my group members are doing. I'm putting them in smaller groups to talk and discuss, report back. And I don't have to be like a junior pastor and talk for 45 minutes. And I think that's terrifying to some new group leaders.
Absolutely.
They think, well, I got to do what my pastor does. Absolutely not. But we attempt it. And then we wonder, why is this not working? And people are walking out. They're kind of sliding out the back door, not coming back. They won't tell us why. It's because of that. So our small group environments are such good places for questions and community and more interactive things than we can ever do in a worship service. Right?
People feel valued when they get to talk. And so in a discussion setting, and when they're interacting with Scripture, those are valuable times.
It almost begins to feel like it's their group.
Yes.
They get ownership of the group because they get to talk and they get to ask questions. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I want to get one more question in before we have to wrap things up. Melissa asks, how long should groups be together before multiplying into new groups? And I love that she's already thinking about multiplication.
Yes, bravo.
So how do you so answer that question? Okay. How long should they be together?
Okay.
When do you know it's time to start a new group out of your group? And how do you encourage leaders to multiply?
This is a great question to end on. Melissa, thank you for that question. So here you go. You start a new group, or you start thinking about preparing that group to launch another one, or at least several people leave it to go seed another group. Around the 18 to 24 month mark of the group being together. Usually in group life, at about 18 to 24 months, our groups turn inward. And that's because we've prayed together, studied together, served together, ate together, fellowship together, and we get close. And then new people try to come in and they just bounce and ricochet off of us. They cannot connect to us relationally. And here's a big, you can mark this one down. The guy from Sunday school, the Sunday school director said it. Most of the time, people are not there for the Bible study. They are there for the people, the human connection. Yeah. And they're thrilled because they know you're going to do Bible study, but they're there to make some new friends. Yeah. And when they can't, they bounce off, leave our churches, and we wonder what's happened to the Smith family. They've been visiting for a month. And so the secret to helping them is to tell our group leaders and our group members that, don't think that we can have you together forever, like until Jesus comes back. That's just not healthy. It's better for us to take a few people out, go start another group, and reach those new people. So 18 to 24 month mark after a group started, we need to be thinking about new group. However, let me do the one caveat, and then I'll kick it to you. If the group has a good span of care and people can be followed up on and absentees can be reached, groups may get a little more time on the old calendar. Yeah. But just be thinking about 2 years. That's about the right time.
Yeah. That's great. Great discussion today, guys. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for walking us through the research. Ken, thank you for all your excellent ideas and insights.
You're welcome.
Thanks to all of you for joining us for this webinar. Thanks for all the questions that came in. That's been really great. We're going to have to stop because we've hit an hour almost. Be on the lookout in your inbox for the new State of Groups Insights report that digs into this data. You'll find some more information in there. It's a good overview of the entire study that we did, but it also offers some really actionable items that you can take from it and start to use in your church groups ministry. I hope that you will continue to follow Lifeway Research. You can sign up for our newsletter at lifewayresearch.com/newsletter. Stay tuned for future webinars. We've got more great research coming from the Lifeway Research team in 2025. Looking forward to diving into all kinds of topics and things that you guys are going to be looking at. Any sneak peeks you can give us, Scott, of studies that are coming out soon?
Oh, we're diving into just really a lot of the kind of state of the church elements. today. And we're also looking at discipleship in depth this year.
Okay, great. Well, looking forward to that information. Thanks to all of you. For everything that you're doing in your churches to make disciples, to teach the Bible, and to encourage the people in your congregations in their walk with Christ. Thanks for joining us. Ken had to run out because he had a meeting, so that's why you saw him walk across the screen. We will look forward to having you guys at a future webinar.